So my name is Wally Dion. I'm an artist. I live and work in Binghamton, New York. But I'm from Canada. I was born and raised in a place called Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. And I moved to Binghamton following my Master of Fine Arts, where I met my wife Sophia, and she lived here or lives here, and so we moved back here to live. I love my job. This is what I wanted to do. There was a spell where I was going into social work. I was working a lot with young people and working with social justice and issues surrounding like foster care and young offenders. And my work, I still am interested in those topics. I'm more interested in my work as a social conscious and ties to Indigenous or Native American issues, political and economic issues. So I am still doing that kind of work, but this is how I got into the work was just I was working at a social justice facility called John Howard Society, and I just ended up quitting that job and going into art full time. I had finished my degree at that point. I had a degree in fine arts, but like I said, I wasn't sure how I was going to make a living, and eventually I just decided to quit all of these other jobs. Even I was teaching for a while. I was teaching murals and teaching young people how to paint, and I just decided to go into just being a full-time studio artist, and that was back in 2006, just to pursue like shows and exhibitions and selling art and doing portraits for people and whatnot. So I just decided, one day I just decided that how I was going to do what I wanted to do, what I was sort of trained to do and what I wanted to do out of life, and not based that on what my family or what other people thought I should do, or how practical my decisions were going to be according to whomever, financially or otherwise. So that was a long time ago. Well, I've learned a lot from just working by myself. I've learned a lot about working with the art world. So the art world, there's so many different facets to the art world, and there's the Canadian art world and the American art world. I think one thing that kind of stands out in my mind right now is that one of the lessons is to try to treat everyone decently and respectfully, and try to treat everyone whom I come into contact with, whether they be art handlers, curators, just people in galleries, museums, people on social media, on Instagram or Facebook, just to try to treat everyone and speak to everyone professionally and not cause drama or come across as a diva, for lack of a better. There was a time when I was maybe a little bit too abrasive and rash in my discussions with people, and I think that I'm not sure, but you can go a long ways, or you can lose a lot from just a few bad experiences in the art world, or maybe that's in my head, but it just seems as though a few bad experiences, a few bad encounters can go a long ways to hurting one's career, and especially in a career where there's a ton of artists practicing, there's a ton of people doing great work, similar work. So sometimes it can come down to just whether or not somebody likes you or doesn't like you, or what somebody heard about you. So my new philosophy is try to be chill and try to be cool. Yeah, I'll just tell you one of my favorite stories. Because I was making, I make paintings, but I make quilts as well. I make quilts out of circuit boards, and one of the back home in Saskatchewan, or Saskatoon, where I used to live, I had sold a quilt, my very first quilt, my star blanket quilt. I'd sold it to the Arts Board, the Arts Council, And years had gone by, a couple years had gone by, and the Arts Council said, we need to ship it. And I said, well, that's, you know, we need a crate. I said, you guys have a crate? I made a crate. They said, no, somebody threw the crate away. Can you go measure the quilt and build us a new crate? And I said, sure. I mean, yes, I'll do that for sure. I said, where is it? Where's the quilt? And they said, it's at the courthouse. It's at the provincial courthouse, down on whichever street. You just go and talk to so and so down at the provincial court. Anyways, so here I am. I'm going into the courthouse, the provincial courthouse, it's in the judges' chambers, which is a private area of the courthouse, just for the judges and people who are doing judges stuff. And so I'm back there. My art is hanging on the wall, and I'm measuring it, and I'm trying to get things figured out. And it took a little while, and there was judges, all these like. You know, they're black robes, like in Canada they have these black robes. They're like sort of like magisterial outfits, and you know, I started recognizing these judges because I had been a young offender. I'd been in court a lot when I was young, and these were the same judges. They'd stayed, and I don't think they recognized me, or maybe they see thousands of people. But that was one of my most interesting experiences, because I feel like the system had come full circle, because one of the philosophies they have in Canada is to they try not to lock people up. They try to keep people out of jail. So for me, like I said, I'd been in trouble so many times for so many things, but I had never done time. I'd never been sentenced to closed custody jail. It had always been like, oh, you know, send you here, send you there, do this or that. So I thought that was very interesting, how I was seeing these people, and these people were seeing me in their art. My art was hanging in their, but they didn't know. I mean, when they select whose art's going to be hanging in their chambers, they don't necessarily know who it was. So I thought that was an interesting caveat of life, and how everybody kind of came back together. That's my favorite story from being an artist. The biggest challenge I am facing, sometimes it's just the challenge of staying positive in the studio and trying to just kind of continue to have a grind and a hustle, and keep my focus on what I'm doing, the work I'm making, and why it's important when there's no sales, or no what seems like or appears to be reduced or less interest. That's a challenge. It's a challenge to stay self-motivated, and to just continually remind myself why this work is important, and why I decided to be an artist, and who I'm making the work for, and why I should continue doing this work. That's a real challenge, actually.